Hot. It is hot. Okay. Alright. Witches, wizards, elves, fairies, pixies, mermaids, gelflings, unicorns, dragons, aliens, neurodiverse, neurotypical, black sheep, scapegoats, outcasts, and anyone in between, or not. Just anyone and everyone, basically. So now I am going to do the update for, well, I'm going to do the story leading up to my ADHD assessment, and then also what happened during my ADHD assessment, and then so yeah, before, middle, during and after, so what's happening now after my ADHD assessment. Thank God for fans, y'all. So yeah, hold on to your hats, buckle in, feet up, grab a drink, grab a snack, maybe try and wash the dishes, wash your hair, do something. I don't know. You can listen to this. I'll be your body double, and you can listen to me talk about my ADHD experience. Anyway, yeah, so what I'm going to do is talk about ADHD, how long it took me to get assessed, the whole sort of assessment process. Also later on, or next video, I'll see how this goes. I'll be talking about ADHD medication so far, and how I deal with medication, what I think of it so far, which is another topic as well to talk about. So first I'll talk about how I came about to getting assessed for ADHD. So yeah, what it is, when I went to school when I was a wee lass, back in London, back in the 80s we are talking about now, I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia when I was around 7 or 8 years old. Now, bearing in mind, I was diagnosed, I went to a private school back then, and I went to my first kindergarten or nursery, and my first sort of junior school wasn't a private school. And I remember, like, because this could be a trait of like ADHD and neurodiversity. My memory is so interesting, and do other people get this? Let me know, or something like this. I have really shit short-term memory, and this can be related to my dyslexia, ADHD, and anything else for that matter. So my short-term memory is rubbish, no good, and out the window. But my long-term memory, when it comes to things like events, what I wore, what people said to me, is like excellent. It's almost photographic memory. It's like 2 to 3 to 4 different types of memory banks within me. I've got shit memory when it comes to learning spellings, maths, and anything that's kind of technical. Did I just catch it in my hair? Oh my god, it's a weapon. Put the weapon down, Ali Kicker. Anyway, yes, so back to memories. Long-term memory. So the memory bank, where it comes to long-term memory, when it comes to colours, events and creative memory, I think like this is connected. So there's the map memory. People who have technical sort of what I call map memory, people who have sort of natural sat-navs in their brain, they can read maps, they can build IKEA furniture pretty well without even looking at instructions, they can figure stuff out. I have not got that, but I do have, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo clue on how to, I do build IKEA furniture, but I need to watch YouTube videos, constantly look at the shitty pictures that I put on the instructions and stuff like that. But long-term memory, things to do with colours, clothing, what I wore when I was 18, 16, what they said to me, even from a baby. I remember lying in the cot and looking at my mobile and like cuddling my teddy bears and my toys being left in my cart for an extended period of time. Stuff like that, like I just feel like I can remember it. Who else? But anyway, so going back, I was diagnosed around maybe 7 or 8, something like that. So I finished sort of my like infant school or whatever you call it, nursery school, and I went to this school. One of them was called Allendale and the other one was called Scarsdale. This is back in the 80s. And then I left that school and I ended up going to Hill House School in London. And it was there, I felt really uncomfortable. That was like a private school and I hated it. And I was different, like I looked different. I didn't have any friends. And I've got so many stories to do with school life that made me not enjoy school at all. I was a complete outcast at school. I was bullied by students and by teachers. Yeah, however, back then when I was a wee lass, I guess things that were obvious to me was I struggled with reading, writing, spelling, maths and lots of stuff like surrounding those things. And I guess the teachers or somebody must have picked up on it, maybe my mum, I don't know who it was, or who started the ball rolling on me getting a diagnosis for dyslexia. But in the 80s, dyslexia was a thing. The 80s to me is like a portal to many things. There were a lot of things sort of being researched a little bit more. And it was like the 80s is almost like a portal to like sci-fi and like other stuff as well, but that's a different conversation. And I guess the 80s was sort of like, there was the whole like AIDS and HIV thing and all of that, and the stigma around that too, which is another conversation I wouldn't mind going into. But I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I remember going for the test. I remember going into this like building, going upstairs, and an older woman sitting me down and doing reading, writing, spelling, memory tests and some sort of puzzles back then. I just remember it was separate from school, and I was taken to this place. My mom took me. And I remember it was like this old-fashioned like townhouse building. And I remember like my mum maybe like waiting downstairs, and I was taken upstairs by this lady, and she got me to do drawing, puzzles, reading, writing, memory, and like stuff like that, and spelling. And I remember just like thinking, oh, this is a bit different, like, because I don't know, I think it was after school at some point. And I remember not long after that going back in the school and being told by a teacher that I was dyslexic. I wasn't explained what that meant or what it was. They just said, oh, by the way, you're dyslexic, like that. And it was really randomly done. I was literally like in, you know, where you hang your pegs up, like your swimming bag up. I remember like getting my swimming bag down from the peg to go swimming, and I hated swimming at the time because the teacher bullied me and made me wear an adult size swimming costume that was way too big for me, and it was falling off, and then she tied a massive knot in the back of it and pushed me in the pool and started laughing. See, now all these stories are going to come out. It's going to be like therapy session, this is. You can let me know your experiences with diagnosis and school as well if you want in the comments. Go ahead. But yeah, so yeah, I was getting ready to go swimming. I remember taking my swimming bag off the peg, and some teacher called me over, pulled me to one side, and everybody else was getting their coats on and their swimming bags. And she just kind of looked at me and she went, oh, you're dyslexic. And that was that. Now, that word at that age, when you're like 7 and 8, in the 80s, it was like a mystery. Like, funnily enough, because I was a highly sensitive girl back in the day, and a lot of neurodivergents are highly sensitive, my intuition just kind of knew what it was without her. Like, nobody, no teacher, no mom, no dad, nobody sat me down and explained what dyslexia was, but I kind of knew what she meant. But I didn't get help for it in that school at all. It was more like brushed under the carpet, hush hush. You're the strange kid, you're the outcast kid, you're the weirdo kid, you're the kid with no friends, no girls are talking to you. And I've got a whole story, I might go into it another day, where the French teacher like bullied me, and it was horrific. However, moving on and moving forward, so I was diagnosed as a child with dyslexia, and nothing was done about that at all. Nothing was explained at all until I got to a different school, and in which I did get some form of help with dyslexia, where I would sit in an annex little classroom with a woman, bless her heart, Mrs. Smith, who helped me and another boy in my class, I think, or in my year. There was 2 of us who went into this separate room with books, like reading books and all that, and she basically, mostly back then, so I feel like this would have been in the 90s now, like early 90s, where I started getting help with reading and spelling. Even though dyslexia was on a spectrum, and there would have been more things I needed help with, but back then that's what I got, and that's what they did. And I would have maybe a lesson with her like once a week, do you know what I mean? And I liked her, so that was a good thing. And it was almost like me and this weirdo boy got to sit with each other doing our spellings, in which, I mean, I was called bone idle by a teacher once for not getting my spellings above, like, I used to like learn my spellings all the time. Like, I tried to learn my spellings like all the time. So when we had spelling tests, and there would be like, say, like 12 spellings to learn. This would be in junior school, in the new school I ended up going to. Basically, I ended up going to the Royal Wolverhampton School, so this is where all this happened, and I was in the junior school, and then I went to the senior school. And one of the teachers called me out at the end of a spelling test where I got most of them wrong, and she literally called me bone idle for not learning my spellings and not trying hard enough, which is horrific, because I actually, every week and every night, I used to try and learn spellings. But because I was dyslexic, and they either didn't know about that, or they didn't know enough about it, or if they did know about it, Oh my, holy smokes. They didn't care and they didn't give a shit. And they would call you names like bone idle, lazy, thick, stupid. When the brain, the dyslexic brain works different. It's like you have the learning, it's almost like, obviously it's on a spectrum, so it's different for each person, but the teaching needs to be different, the way for that individual. And between the individual and the people that are supposed to be helping, caring, teaching them, including the parents and their carers, need to get involved with ways and strategies on how to teach and manage people's differences, instead of the one sort of structured sort of, hey teacher, leave those kids alone. That's the song I think of. Like, school is so sort of military and prison-like and sort of brainwashingly numb, and all the kids are zombified. And unless you fall into that kind of structured category, you know, you're considered lazy, stupid, naughty, and all the other names that you get called. Anyway, so yeah, but I did get help in that school. Mrs. Smith used to give me reading and spelling lessons, and that was good. So thank you, Mrs. Smith, even though you've probably died and gone to heaven. Yeah, she has, actually. But yeah, thank you. So moving forward. I went to the high school there, and then that was shit too, but I'm not going to go into that. I didn't really get any help in the high school. That was total shit. Anyway, I was going to pick the fan up again, but I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm going to... Bloody hell. I've got another weapon. Yeah, let's use this. This might be slightly safer. I know. So I found myself... So skip high school for a bit. I might talk about something to do with that another time. But moving forwards, I went to university for a bit and I studied fashion for a little bit. And during that course, a teacher was checking through my portfolio, my work and stuff. And then he called me out in front of the whole class and was like, you need to watch your spellings or you'll fail, like that, pointing. And I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic, whatever. And then he was like, you need to prove it. Do you have your dyslexia certificate, like a certificate on you? I was like, no, I don't. I got diagnosed when I was a little kid and I don't know where that is. I'll ask my mum, and my mum didn't have it. I mean, we had a fire in my house when I was little, but that's a different story, so maybe it got burnt in flames, who knows. That's actually a true story, but I might talk about that in another video when I'm talking about other things to do with my mental health and things that have affected my mental health growing up. Hence why I want to talk about the other psych mental health hospital and clinic I've been to. Well, one I have been to and the other one I haven't, but I want to talk about that too in another video. So he was like, oh, you need to prove that you're dyslexic. So I ended up getting another dyslexic test as an adult, and I did a whole load of tests, more than when I was a little kid, because now we're talking about I was around 35 or so when I went for another dyslexic test, so I could prove to them that I was dyslexic, so that I don't fail for my spellings, or I get extra time or whatever it is they let you have. Anyway, yeah, so I go for this other test, and he did reading, writing, memory, puzzles, time, maths, walking. He got me to walk up and down, handwrite. He's watching my handwriting. He got cellophane with different clear plastic with different colours over the top, try reading with that, try reading, like, you know, that was like a whole day sort of situation. And that was fine, and I did that, and I waited weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks for the report to come through, not knowing what the results were going to be. And in his report, he wrote down that I was dyslexic and dyspraxia. And I had heard of dyspraxia before, but I never really knew what it was. But intuitively, I knew what it was before I even looked it up, and I was like, yes, now that makes sense that I'm dyspraxic as well as dyslexic. So that is what triggered me to get ADHD assessed, because a bit later on down the line, so this is the other thing, moving on, that's also triggering me, that triggered me to get assessed, but also is triggering me to get assessed for autism, because my youngest daughter has been diagnosed with autism when she was a teenager. And my daughter has been diagnosed with autism. I took her when she was much younger, when she was around 6, to get a diagnosis, and they weren't listening properly at the time. They didn't do a proper diagnosis at the time. I'm not going to go into the full length story of that. And they basically like fobbed us off, and the school wasn't helping at all. It was horrific, but that's another story. So, and then eventually I got round for my daughter to get assessed for autism, and then that took ages, and then finally, like, she's basically been diagnosed with autism, and she's also got selective mutism. So selective mutism, I heard somebody call it something else the other day, which also makes sense. But selective mutism is like sort of not completely non-verbal, because, you know, like, obviously autism's also on the spectrum, like, where some people can like talk a lot, and some people can be like completely like pretty much completely non-verbal, and like selective mutism is kind of somewhere in between. So a bunch of people with autism who are autistic can also have selective mutism, but you can also have selective mutism if you're not autistic. There's a really good documentary, I'll leave a link below, on selective mutism on YouTube somewhere, called something like My Child is Mute, or My Child Won't Speak, or something like that. And funnily enough, every child that they spoke about on that particular documentary was female, which is quite interesting. But yeah, so my daughter's autistic. And then after that, at some point later on down the line, I went to my GP. So I think initially it took me about 4 to 5 years to actually get assessed for ADHD, since I first sort of mentioned it to my GP. So I think I went to my GP around 2019 or 2020, something like that, but I got diagnosed in 2014 with ADHD. So I waited years, so I was put on the list, and there was an initial sort of questionnaire that they send you to fill out initially, and I hate those sort of multiple choice questionnaires, because it's either just tick a box for this, this and this, and there's no proper sort of, what do you call it, what's that word, yeah, where was I, multiple choice. So you fill out this questionnaire, yes, no, maybe, like multiple choice questions, but you tick boxes, and there's no like elaboration, but I wrote on mine anyway and gave them extra because I couldn't help it. Do you know what I mean? I elaborated a little bit anyway, and quite a lot when it came to the assessment itself. So several years went by and nothing happened. I didn't hear from anyone. It's kind of like they give you the silent treatment, like there's no updates of when they're going to contact you, or there wasn't for me anyway, put it that way, speaking for myself and my own experiences. So yeah, and then I waited 150 years, 200 years, something like that. And in between I would sort of like call the GP or tell the GP I haven't heard from anytime soon, when am I going to get assessed, because obviously they're super busy and it's the NHS, so there's a lot going on. Exactly. So eventually I do hear from someone, and I think like I get a letter in the post from either the GP or the ADHD assessment people themselves, and I end up getting some sort of appointment at some point, which would have been, that was like a wasp or something, which would have been initially a FaceTime. So at some point they sent me another questionnaire to do, an official one for the ADHD assessment itself. So I had a big questionnaire which was also multiple choice, in which one of the people that worked at the clinic that I went to, like when I called them up and asked them questions to do with the multiple choice questions, I said, I need to elaborate, I can't just tick boxes, this doesn't make sense to me, this question, I can't explain it. What I'm going to do is try and get them to print a copy of the questions, and maybe I'll do another separate video going through the questions that I got. I'll see if I can get them to print my one off. But you'll see what I mean. If, like, yeah, the questions are really annoying. So I had to fill out that questionnaire, and then they ask you, or they get you to, there's a series of questions that go to like a family member or somebody that you've known for X amount of years, like they have to have known you for a long time, since childhood. And then one or two people that know you have to fill out their own questionnaire about you as a child up until like adulthood. So they have their own seat, and they can write a little thing about you as well, like their opinion. So it's almost like a form of shadow work, like for somebody to go to the GP and tell them, oh, you think you might have ADHD or something like that. It's almost like it's a form of self-reflection and shadow work, and also admitting to yourself that there could be something about you that's different, which is a good thing, because it's good to be different and not the same and not sheep. And I've always been different, I've always felt different, I always was different, I always was a black sheep, I always was an outcast, and I always was a scapegoat, and to a certain extent, because a lot of not neurodivergent people can feel that way, depending on the person and like their environment, their surroundings, and who they were around growing up, and school and everything to do with it. Anyway, so next thing, I fill out the questionnaire, it takes me ages, they give you a certain amount of time to do it for. I fill out, and then my sister does her one eventually, and you like send that back or give it back to the clinic. So yeah, talking about the clinic, I'm loving this. Ocean spray, cranberry and raspberry, juicy and sweet, that's well nice. Ocean spray, I love your drink. Anyway, yeah. So eventually, so I send the questionnaire back, my one, and my sister sends her one back, because my sister's known me all my life, pretty much. Exactly. And then initially I had a FaceTime appointment with an ADHD psychiatrist, and the clinic that I went to is in Stourbridge, and it's called Hill House, and it's a specialist clinic just for ADHD and autism. So I'm going to tell you everything what I think about the clinic, the people that work there, my assessment, everything to do with it. So yes, I waited 4, 5, 6 years altogether, around 5 years probably, let's just say, for the actual assessment. I waited and I waited, so I had to get on with my life and do other things and try not to overthink it. So yeah, you got to be doing that. Then what happened was, let me fan you, were you getting hot? I had initial FaceTime appointment, and each appointment I had with the psychiatrist, FaceTime or face-to-face like in real life, was between 45 minutes and an hour and a half. And what they do is, so on the first appointment it was FaceTime, and I was with a male psychiatrist, and they go ask you a whole bunch of questions, like the same questions that they've asked you in the questionnaire, and you have to like answer them, and they let you have like breaks, or like they'll like try and explain like what they're doing or why they're doing it. I mean, I couldn't understand half of what they were saying, and the lingo and the technical side of stuff, but you kind of get the general idea. So you go through all your questions, you talk about that, so they ask you questions from when you were a child, how you were at school, your home life, your school life, your child life, your teenager life, and like as a young adult and an adult, whatever. So they ask you all about that and all the questions to do with it, driving, concentration, homework, grades, tidiness or messiness, you know, like stuff like that, concentration, losing things, remember your memory, and like a load of questions, okay, like to do with so much stuff. They ask you the questions again, and then I went into the actual clinic and I saw a different psychiatrist in this clinic. Now in the clinic they've got like secretaries and people work there. For me, everyone that worked there were pleasant, kind, helpful and respectful and professional. So yeah, they had different people that worked there, and when I walked in, it was kind of similar like to a doctor's surgery ish kind of thing. So you walk in and it's like a bit of an office with a desk and a couple of chairs. You sit in one, and I was with a female psychiatrist face to face on my second appointment, and that lasted an hour and a half, something like that. And this particular woman was she was nice, she was approachable, and I felt like comfortable with her. And then like I initially, when I sat there, I gave myself a bit of a pep talk, is that what it's called? Anyway, yeah, that. And I told myself, oh, don't talk straight away, let the psychiatrist talk, ask you questions and all of that. Did that happen? No. As soon as I sat down, maybe it was her energy, I started talking, and I started talking about, I'll give a crazy ass story. I gave her a crazy ass story. Yeah, I gave her a crazy ass story about one time. This is a real ass story. Shall I tell you? I said it, mentioned this story before. I was filling up petrol, and some Karen woman next to me went into the garage. I was minding my own business, filling up petrol pump. What happened was I was at Tesco. I was at a Tesco petrol station, okay, and you know, at some of the petrol stations, like these Tesco ones, they've got those like pillar things, and I kind of knocked it, but with my bumper like slightly knocked it, and you can see it's been knocked 10 million times by 10 million other cars, lorries, trucks, vans, you name it, bicycles and pedestrians probably walked into that. So I bumped it, and another woman next to me in her little mini was filling up petrol as well, and she seen me knock it. Get out the car, I carry on with my business, not even noticing. She didn't say anything to me. She runs inside the petrol station, and then I was going to go and pay at the pump. I didn't want to go inside, and it was like a mini Tesco local, or whatever it's called. It was a mini supermarket petrol station, so it was a whole ass shop. I wasn't going to tell this story, but here we go. And then before I know it, they were having a charity day. This was the craziest thing. It was kind of really surreal. I actually feel like it was almost like a message. They had the charity on, and the shop, the people that were working in the shop were dressed up for charity, and they were wearing superhero costumes. So the manager, whoever she was, come out to me, and she had a Wonder Woman outfit on. And then her friend, a colleague that worked there, had a Power Ranger, like the pink, she was like the pink Power Ranger. It was awesome, like how they were dressed up. It was like a charity thing. The craziest thing, that day I was wearing a t-shirt, like a tank top with fucking Pokemon on it. I was having a great day. I dropped my daughter off at college, and I was about to go for a fucking walk, working, earthing in nature, as you do, you know what I mean. So I went to fill up petrol because I needed petrol. Bumped my car on the little, like, the little, you know, the little metal things that stick out the ground at the petrol station. Those post things. I knocked it. This Karen woman ran out inside and told them to call the police because they thought I was drunk. But I don't drink alcohol, which is hilarious. I stopped drinking alcohol. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything. Like, I used to smoke cigarettes, and I quit smoking and then like drinking naturally after that in 2019. Yeah, anyway, moving on. So I don't drink alcohol at all and all that jazz. But anyway, so they called the police, and I was like, they come outside, the Power Ranger and Wonder Woman. They're like, are you okay? They were like, are you okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine, thanks for asking. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these strangers that work in the shop for charity, or being, maybe it's part of like the charity thing they're doing, like being extra nice for a day. It's normally like they're moody little fuckers, aren't they? Yeah, anyway. Before I know it, she goes, Wonder Woman, the manager, I'm sure she was the manager or something like that. She went, oh, do you want to come inside the petrol station? And I went, yeah, okay. But I was kind of like, why the hell? Because I want to pay at the pump. But anyway, I went in. Before I know it, I turn around and the police are there to breathalyze me. But get this. The police, two police women rock up in their little police car. And they go, oh, we need to breathalyze you and see that you're not drunk. I'm like, I'm not drunk, but yeah, go ahead. They didn't have a breathalyzer on them, so they had to wait for a colleague to come for like half an hour. Another policeman to come just to bring them a breathalyzer. I was like, why don't you have a breathalyzer? And they were like, government funding. They don't give us enough money. Not everybody has breathalyzers. And I was just like, really? Is that true? Please let me know if that's true. Anyway, so this policeman rocks up with the breathalyzer, gives it to the women, asks me some questions, and then he leaves them to do the breathalyzing. He drives off in his police car. So these two police women are like breathalyzing me. And everybody from the shop, Wonder Woman, the Power Rangers, everybody else that worked there, and other customers that were there, probably Karen, who run into the shop and told them that I was drunk, and I wasn't. They were all watching to see if they were right. To see if they were right and if I was actually drunk, and they could all have a laugh about it. Anyway, they were wrong, and then the police like let me go, and then one of the police officers gave me the breathalyzer, like the piss take. She went, "Oh, that's a souvenir," and she gave me the plastic thing that you stick on the end of the breathalyzer, and she told me that was a souvenir. Like, that was really unprofessional, and I just kind of laughed because I just wanted to leave at that point. And then I had to go back to the college and get my daughter from college because I didn't have time to go for my walk and shit. Plus I was like exhausted and stressed out from the whole experience. But the craziest thing is, and the funniest thing, it was almost like a lesson, because Power Ranger and Wonder Woman were trying to catch me, but I was wearing a Pokemon shirt. And you know Pokemon Go, try and catch them all, like the game Pokemon Go. They couldn't catch me, could they? And it was almost like a spiritual lesson to me. Like, the police were trying to catch who they thought was the bad guy, but really I was the good guy in my Pokemon shirt that was protecting me, and they couldn't catch me, even though they were really like the baddies. Because it's always like, sometimes people play a facade to be like superheroes, but really like they're trying to get you because of your energy and your aura, and you need to protect your aura. But luckily that day I had my Pokemon t-shirt on and they couldn't catch me, and I wasn't fucking drunk. Like, people who drink drive yeah, it's like really bad, isn't it? Anyway, so where the fuck was I? So yeah, I sat down and I sat down and told this psychiatrist that story. She kind of started laughing. She goes, "Oh, you could be autistic." I was like, "Yeah, I already know." So yeah, hence the whole autism thing. Anyway, so she ended up asking me a bunch of questions. They kind of ask you the same questions over and over again so that they can get like the alignment with your answers, kind of thing, I suppose. But you just be yourself and just say what you think and say like what it is that you, how you are and stuff, and that's the best way to be. So I did that. Then I would wait a few weeks or a month or a couple of months, I can't remember, 2-3 weeks. It was very sporadic because the NHS it's not like private healthcare where you pay and you can get an appointment the next week or within 2 weeks or even the next day or the next hour, depending on what private facility and what hospital you're like seeing. Because I've been in private healthcare too, so I know the difference, like waiting times and how the difference of how the hospitals are. Because usually you can get like a tea and coffee machine in private hospitals and stuff like that, and the seats are a little bit more like bougie, stuff like that. But anyway, and ultimately you can get appointments quicker and maybe longer appointments and stuff like that, and yeah, whatever, that's a different conversation. But with NHS it's like you can be waiting another several weeks, you won't be 100% sure like how long you're waiting for your next appointment, and then all of a sudden they'll send you an appointment in the post, and if it's the wrong time you have to call them up, and then they have to reschedule, and then you'll have to wait again, so it can be frustrating. Anyway, so I waited for another appointment, then I went back to the clinic face to face, and the original psychiatrist male I seen again face to face for like around an hour and a half face to face. And he was the guy that did the FaceTime thing the first time. And he is like, at the moment, my sort of official main ADHD psychiatrist that has been like looking after me since my diagnosis. So he goes through the questions and more questions again with you again. And I guess they see how you are and your behaviour in general and your questions, and if they they go through the questions again. It's kind of frustrating, but that's what they do. So you sit there, you answer the questions, and then you leave, and then you wait again. And then after that, I might have had a couple more FaceTime appointments between 45 minutes and an hour and a half with him, with the male psychologist. I didn't see the female one again after that. And little things happen in between, like you call them up and they call you, and like try and get bits of other like information in between that. So then I had 2 other FaceTime assessments for about an hour and a half, give or take. And then after, and also any letter they wrote to me, they copied to my GP. And then, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks, you know, in between each appointment, like a few months or a few weeks in between each one. Eventually, down the line, little bit later down the line, I got a letter from the ADHD clinic from the male psychologist, I believe it was, telling me that basically, in a nutshell, that I have ADHD. I mean, there was all like the technical and the other writing in the letter as well, explaining it all. But basically, they gave me the ADHD diagnosis. And then at some point, a couple of weeks or something like that later, he FaceTimes me, or yeah, he tells me again on FaceTime, and then he discusses they do sort of mention medication and my thoughts on medication prior to that a little bit, just to get a general idea of what you think about medication. And at the time I was a bit reluctant about getting it, but I thought, you know, I better try it to see if it helps me at all. So next video we'll talk about meds and what I think of all of that. However, so after that they do follow-up appointments, either in the clinic or FaceTime. A lot of people probably do FaceTime, or maybe some people it's like on the phone, but for me they give you like a FaceTime. And those follow-up appointments can be up to 45 minutes, they could be less, but they're up to 45 minutes max. For me it was anyway. I don't know about any other clinic, let me know how long your appointments were. So with the initial assessment questionnaire that I filled in, my sister's one, and it was around 4 appointments altogether between 2 psychiatrists. After 4, so yes, 1 FaceTime, 2 face-to-face appointments, 1 with the female psychiatrist, 1 with the male psychiatrist, then another 2 FaceTime appointments with the male one after that. After that is when I got diagnosed, and first I got a diagnosis letter telling me I had ADHD, and then I got a follow-up FaceTime appointment 45 minutes telling me that I had ADHD, and then he wanted to talk about medication. So then I went in after that and seen him discussing different medications, and I was just like, yeah, let's go ahead and try the medication. In which because this video's gone on way too long, in which next video what I'll do is talk about the medication I've been prescribed so far. Have I taken it properly? How much have I taken? What do I think of it so far? In the next video. Now I did rabbit on a lot, but that could be part of my ADHD. I'm not on medication today, by the way. In which I'll give you a little quick insight to the medication. To me so far, I don't think the medication is helping me that much. But I'll go into a bit more detail about it in the next video. and I have been feeling a few side effects, and overall I'm not 100% sure. I do want to try medication a little bit longer, or maybe a different type. I'm not sure. I'm going to try this one a little bit longer, but I don't think they're helping me that much. I think long term I don't think they're going to help me that much. I could change my mind, so we'll see. And I have been getting some I've lost my talking capabilities. I'm going into shutdown. I am zoning out. I am dissociating. Oh my god, holy hell. That's enough talking. Right, I'm going to stop because I'm literally dissociating. I'm literally burning out, and I'm literally shutting down as we speak. And it's too hot. I can't take the heat. Thank God for my fan. Even though I nearly killed myself with my bloody electric fan. Remember not to put this near your big curly hair or any hair when you are fanning yourself. Exactly, get one of these. So yeah, that's that. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Any questions, let me know. I'll either try and reply in the comments when I see your comments, if I see your comments, because I don't always see all comments. If I remember to reply in comments, and if my pathological demand avoidance doesn't kick in too much, because I've definitely got that. That's one of my definite symptoms. But I'm shutting down, and I'm gonna go. So yeah, if you've got any questions, I'll either do a video replying to your questions, or I'll try and reply to questions in the comments below. I might not, but leave a comment if you want. But you don't have to. Yeah, whatever to that. But I'll also leave links below to a couple of programs to watch. Watch Chris Packman's Inside Our Autistic Minds. There's another one called Inside Our ADHD Minds, and Inside Our Dyslexia Minds. I might talk about those programs again on another video, because I love Chris Packman. He's got autism himself. It's on the BBC, and he is a British UK TV presenter. He's been a British TV presenter for years and years, and he usually does, and he's always done wildlife TV presenting, so if you want, check out those programs too. But he does autism, ADHD, dyslexia, neurodiversity. He's autistic. He even had a program called Asperger's and Me initially, before the autism one. So yeah, check those out. I'll leave links below to what that looks like a little bit, and maybe listen to The Wall by Pink Floyd, because school was shit to me, and ADHD, autism, dyslexia and all that jazz makes me think of that song quite a lot. Alright, see you later. Take it easy, and don't let that